All right, I'm back. Go ahead and get started again. The only thing that I could see in my system was my news service looked like it might have hung and was causing a problem. So I've closed that. In fact, I can't reopen it. So I will. Hopefully, we'll have better results here now. All right, so I will get this. I will get this chart, this page, um, in a format that can be provided. Let's get back to this. Again, did price pass through an LVA or HVA? Talked about that. I'm talking to something you've identified as a key level. Did price go through that? So you just need to identify the price that was affected by news, and then update plan to reflect the pre-news. So this is a workflow that I have, and that I guess I've kind of accustomed myself to going through this workflow. Um, I don't need to have it in front of me, but um, I use this now on a regular basis with news, even if it's news after the market is open. Pretty much the same thing. If we hit news and price moves with a volume spike, I'm sitting on my hands. I am not just taking a trade long or short. I'm waiting to see if price pulls back. Always waiting to see a pullback on news before I do anything. And it's very similar to what I do with the open. It's very similar to what I do with the close, which is regardless of whether price moves higher or lower, I want to understand if where the conviction levels of the buyers and the sellers are. So let's say it takes off to the upside anytime news hits. We get a push to the upside of price with higher volume. That's great. I want to see that push, and I want to see where they're taking the conviction to. And then I want to see the pullback, and I'll look at the print and measure the pullback to try to understand, is this a truly just a pullback, or is this the other side starting to re-engage the initial emotional move of news? And based on what I'm reading in the print, so for example, if price moves up and then it starts coming back down, what I'm looking for in the print as it's coming back down is, are buyers still engaged, or have they just stepped aside? Is the right side of my order flow bars all blue? Are they blue, 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 blue? If so, that's signaling to me that the initial push, they're starting to liquidate some inventory, and the higher probability is that there'll be another push to the upside. What I'm going to wait for is to see where buyers start re-engaging. If, however, the price starts coming back down, and the print doesn't just show weakness, it shows buyers continuing to buy, but now the strength of the bid is stronger and is actually pushing price down, then I'm hands off, because now we've got an engaged seller or sellers engaged, and what I want to see is how far now will they bring price until I can see in the print that they're either giving up or they've taken price back down to where the move initially started. Yay. I I took a short while we were on break. And that is I wanted to short at 1675. We got back up to 1650. I could see the seller starting to re-engage, so I hit a market order, got filled at 16 quarter. Remember from yesterday, this 10, is it 10? 1075 was an issue yesterday, and I'll tell you, if price comes down through 1075 today, we've got we got room all the way down to 07, 06, 07, back down towards yesterday's open. So sorry about that. That occurred. Well, I'm not sorry about it. That occurred during the break, and I've got my stop now nestled very comfortably behind this selling cluster right here. Got some momentum dots to the downside, so I'm going to let it run and just wait till I hear stop filled or order filled. And the reason I took that trade is when we look at the volume profile for today. Again, sellers were struggling with this area at 1825. It passed through the 17 area. And remember, I talked about this scenario. If it passes through and leaves a low volume area, look what I have on the day now. I've got a daytime most current context. I have a daytime time frame that lines up to the tick with my longer term low volume area. So right now, my intraday most current participants are saying this is an unfair low, unfair high. It's a low volume area. And the longer term ones are saying that as well. So I was looking for a trade up here a couple of ticks ahead of this 1675. When the print confirmed the short, I just got out. Now, the thing to note about this is that this area right down here, if you look here, it's a little bit of a low volume 1150. This 1150 to, especially right here at 1075, this really held yesterday. So this initially held, then we had another low volume area right here at 1150. And look what just happened. So my expectation now, if you can see a finish to the downside, if these really are buyers stepping in and we're seeing some good responsive buying, we should see price at least tag 15. Yesterday's VPOC. And what we'd want to start doing now is watching to see if we get rotation around 15, somewhere around 15, and price will start growing, or volume will start growing, and we may get another full distribution here. If we get a distribution here and price pops back above 17 quarter with a lot of volume, I may look for another long on a retest. We may not see another retest of 17 if it breaks back up through there, but I might look for a long on a retest. So again, what's happened is sellers have taken this through, left a low volume area for the day. I love these setups. Looking for a short, taking them back down to previous days area where we saw buyers step in. Remember, this is for this area. This is the most current context we have And I'm glad we have this example right now, actually. This is the most current context I have for buyers and sellers at these prices. 1150 down to 1075. And right now we can see, right now, I'm not saying this will hold, we can see this area holding. And if it doesn't hold, if price gets through that level, then I would start bringing in more data. You know, below 19, look for this area down here. Below that, I would start looking for this distribution. Oh, my charts are working so much better. I would start looking for this distribution. And where's the next place? If it gets down below this area, 1909, and it starts building volume below, where would the next place I would look for buyers? Oh, you're short 16, Gary. Good job. Where's the next place based on the auction from yesterday? Exactly. Perfect, Nestor. 1903. 1906, actually, 1906.75 is a place where I would look. That's a good answer too. 1906.75, this low volume area. But if it started building volume out right here, down here, then I would look right here. Exactly. Exactly. So can you kind of see when I'm trading, what I'm doing? You know, when price starts breaking down in another area, we had price over the high from yesterday. It rejected that. It created a ceiling, right? We had responsive selling, responsive selling. We started getting acceptance lower. Therefore, my eyes moved to this low volume area right here for a potential trade, either long or let it come through for a short. And if it comes through for a short, I'm looking at this area here and here as targets. If it gets through that area, now I'm starting to look down at this 1906.75, 1907 level. And if it gets through that and starts building volume down here around 1906, like it did yesterday, then I'm expecting the trade to go back down towards 1903, 1903 quarter. And that's how I can hold my position. And my stop is sitting right behind 15, which is a little higher than an intraday selling cluster, and I'll get into that. Somebody asked me a question about that. But if we're going to start to see a test higher in acceptance, we very well may see that test to yesterday's VPOC, and this is where price may fail. So I've put my stop in behind it, and it doesn't look like it's done going testing. It doesn't look like it's done testing. I don't want to say higher, not higher for the day, but a little bit higher. So do I look at the print after the candle ends from a weakness strength standpoint? I look at the print as it starts approaching my level. So as price started approaching 16, I started watching the print for weakness. Saw that weakness at 1650. Yep. Can I explain selling versus buying cluster? Yeah, I can do that here. So you know these are the clusters, right? In red, I call it a selling cluster. You can't really. It's not technically a selling cluster, and I probably should term it something different. What all this means is in this bar, this is where the most volume came into the market. And of those three prices, the overall connotation, the overall context for that volume was at the bid. That's technically what it means. On this bar, here were the three prices where the most volume occurred for this bar. And the context for that volume was at the offer, more at the offer. So they're not really buying or selling clusters. And if DB, if you've got a better way to explain it in terms of these, that would be fine with me. But um, that is what I'm. Look at this, right down back to 1050. Remember that from yesterday? 10 and a quarter, 1050. Let's see if it breaks through. So that's, this is neutral. It just tells me that of the volume coming into the bar, um, the volume was overall net neutral, kind of for the majority of the volume. Not necessarily that selling was the cluster. Selling was the outcome of the cluster. For where the majority of volume came in, the outcome was either more to the bid or more to the offer, or about even. A super cluster like in weather, yeah. Stay away, stay away. So this auction right now doesn't look extraordinarily finished to the downside. However, this is a key level, and I have a feel this auction is not done here or here. So my best bet is probably to just close this. I mean, again, it would be great to take this thing all the way down, but I know that I'm going to sit there and watch this stupid thing. And this doesn't look finished here. The profile looks a little less finished, but this was such a key area from yesterday, and the way that this bounced like this, I can see, look at the activity at the offer, at the bid rather, 36, 48. This is pathetic, right? So any kind of volume at the bid, I meant, look at the volume at the bid. Any kind of activity at the offer, when the bid is like this, is going to make price start to go up. So why give it away? Plus, like I said, I'm a trader first, and if I sit there and watch a stupid thing, I'm not gonna focus on the training. But what's interesting is look where this came down to, right? The first bounce that we had was right in this area, this first area right here. And then the second one, our low volume area from yesterday, 1075. So um, I don't necessarily look at this and say, I'm going to go long at 1075. However, it may be a target. It may be a good stop and reverse area too. However, with that print as heavy as it is to the downside, um, it becomes a better target. So I could have just put my last contract offer ahead of that level. But the reality is if it came through there with any kind of volume, we were probably coming down to test 675. This is from a previous day, so I'll get rid of that. Anyway, I'm kind of glad it occurred over the break. Otherwise, I never would have seen it. Kind of fortuitous. All right. So again, I'll get this out to everyone. So building a plan for today. Let's talk to that a little bit. Hang on a second. Close my. Building a plan for today. Now I want to introduce this document. This is the homework sheet. And this is, you can take this and do whatever you want with it. Okay? You can modify it, you can add things, you can do whatever you want with it. But what I want to get you to see is to create something that allows you to begin to capture the context, the information of a specific day so that you can appropriately analyze it. So, and this gets back to a question from the beginning of the day, is what I did is I identified what is the open, what was yesterday's open, where was it? Was it in or outside of previous days? Bring this over. See if we can do it this way. Oh, you know what? I just remembered I have an RTH only session. Let me bring that over. There we go. That's much better. So this chart shows the volume profiles for just the RTH sessions. So and some of these overlap a little bit, just simply because where they start with the OFA bars. But when I look at the open from yesterday, down at 0550, it was well outside of previous day's value. It was outside of previous day's range. Okay. So I want to identify, was it outside? Because I want to know overall in the day, what was the conviction level? And what you can do in here is just put outside low. So this tells me that the market opened up outside of the range and to the downside. The opening swing high and low I put in because I want to understand the initial spread by the buyers and sellers. It was about 2.5 points. And then I put in the IB because what the IB tells me and the spread of the IB tells me this was about 13 and a half points. If I have an IB of 6, 7 points, first hour of trading can't generate more than 5, 6, 7 points of range, and I have an open drive. When you think about what that's saying is there's an open drive, conviction to, let's say, the upside, conviction to the upside, but after an hour of trading, you've got 5, 6 points, which isn't significant. Then there is potential all the time, but there's a higher probability now that if sellers do engage, that they could bring price all the way back down to the open, if not back down through the open. Now yesterday we had a 13.5 point IB. When I have an open drive like we had and 13.5 points in the first hour of trade, that tells me something significant about the buyers from that low of day, or that low of the IB at 1905.25. Tells me a lot of them. So I'll also then put in where the close is. And did it close inside or outside of value? The other thing you can do is when you look at the close at 1475, value being up to here, where did it close relative to value? It closed in the lower portion of value. So you could put that as additional context in there as well. And this is going to start giving me context for my analysis of the day. My closing balance or closing swing high, closing swing low, what was that point range? If there was and 2.25 points is not significant, it's about average. But if I had a 5 point or more closing swing, what does that tell me about the end of the day? What happens at the end of the day, right? If we were long all day and there was a 5 point closing swing to the downside, that tells me that all those buyers didn't have enough conviction to hold price overnight, and they all bailed at the end of the day. So what that tells me going into today, if that were the case, is that my last context of the RTH session yesterday is that buyers bailed. They didn't have conviction to hold this. So they need to do some proving above closing swing low, above 1450, and specifically above that closing swing high, because they bailed. Then I do the overall swing for the day, and here's the way I use this information. So the overall range of the day was 18.25 points. The IB itself was 13.5 points. which means that after the first hour of trade, all the buyers could muster was another 5 points, almost 5 points. So after 13 points, 13 and a half points in the first hour, they could only get price another 5 points, 4 3/4, whatever that comes out to be, for the rest of the day. So that tells me, because, and look where VPOC is from the day yesterday, it moved down here, 15.25. But what that tells me instinctively is that there was a high volume area up at 20.75. The close was down at 14.75. 13 points at the open at the first hour, and only 5 points for the rest of the day. Buyers are really having some issues with conviction. They're having issues with conviction up beyond this, into that, beyond that level of yesterday's high. So if buyers had conviction, meaning they expected price, they continue to see value higher, there is a high probability that we would have closed somewhere around this high volume area yesterday, not all the way back down at VPOC. Closing back down towards VPOC for the day after all of this activity and 18 points on the day says we definitely have buyers, they have conviction, but it's an uncertain conviction right now. They're not willing to put their money where their mouth is above this level. So that goes into part of my analysis. David, when you said never mind, is it because I explained it or because I didn't explain it? Yes, the question, can I explain outside of range? Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying. I didn't want you to say never mind because I just didn't get to your question. Another question. So 7 points versus 13 points of IB tells us something about the commitment of traders within the local context. Absolutely. Remember that first, the theory behind IB, and it used to be something that was much more reliable. It's not in this anymore in this market. But the concept behind the IB, and it was more than a concept, it was pretty founded in reality, is that the majority of the trade for the day, or the majority of the trades for the day, 70-75% likely were going to be within the IB. And that the first hour of trading is really what set the extremes for the market. And here's a little tidbit I'd tell you, okay? I don't have this on a chart. I don't have this in a presentation, but write this down. And this is why you want to mark the IB every day. The high and low of the first hour of trading. If you ever get, and I'll say it again, but if you ever get an intraday low volume area at the top or bottom of IB, which means now price has gone through IB, either to the top or the bottom, that's referred to as range extension, range being the IB range. If you get a low volume area that lines up with the top or bottom of IB, and you're starting to get volume on the other side of IB, take that trade just in front of IB, just in front of that low volume area. If the print, well, don't just blindly take it. If it pulls back to that low volume area that was IB high or low, let's say it pops through the top. Price pulls back at or near that low volume area at the top of the IB, and the print gives you confirmation to go long, you get weak at the bid, strength at the offer. Take that trade 10 out of 10 times. That is an awesome trade. Does that make sense? Show you a visual. Let me see if I can get a visual here for you. Yeah, I can. You know what? I'll just write it down and I'll give it to DB to put out there for you guys. It's just something that came to me. Let me find a day where that was true, where there was a low volume area at IB. Hang on, just let me take a look. All right, it looks like Monday, IB was 1920 to the downside, 1925.50 to the upside. Right there. So that blue line was the top of IB on this day. You can see the low volume area. And in this case, price didn't pull all the way back. You got to, if the print, when the print tells you to go, you got to go the best trade because your risk reward. The best trade would have been around 26, but there was also a low volume area right here. So 26.50, 26.75. You look for the print to confirm a trade long, and you take that trade long. If the intraday participants tell you that this is an unfair high or low, then take that trade. The only exception to that, the only exception, is if price moves up beyond the IB 4 or less ticks and finishes. If it does that, 4 or less ticks, don't take the trade. You want to see volume starting to build either above or below it. I'll write it down. All right, I'll write it down and give it to you guys so you don't have to. It just came to my mind. If it pulls back to the IB high and it's a low volume area, go long. Yes. Yeah, I'll just put it in a document and set up the trade scenario and get it to you guys. How's that? Okay. All right. So let's keep moving here. So I keep adding to this chart, and again, 18.25 point day is a pretty big day on the ES. It's above average. A 13.5 point IB, way above average. The average IB is going to be around 7 to 8 points, and that's if you look at over the last 10 years, you're going to see about 7 to 8 points as an average healthy IB. If you start getting down an IB that's 5 or 6 or 4, be real careful. Anything can happen at that point. If you get a large IB with an open drive, that tells you significant conviction. And not just significant conviction, but the other side abdicated. They relented, they got out of the way. So not only does it show conviction on one side, it shows weakness in that area on the other. So to have price today come back down to this area, to have price come back down, if it got through that low volume area we had from yesterday, that would be a significant event, because this is where the buyer showed conviction yesterday. So I populate this, and of the pieces of data that I look at to analyze the day, the relative open and close, where did it open, where did it close, and where is the VPOC? The only other thing that I would tell you you could look at would be volume. I'm glad I took this trade off. It did come all the way back up to 15. All right, yesterday's VPOC right there, 15, what it does. Does that make sense why I would come back and test this area, 15? Right? If it's going to rotate above 15, got a low volume area here, got one here, got one here. Today, 17. It's also a composite long-term low volume area. Likely to be activity against this 17. It'll be the second touch up there. But if it starts getting through yesterday's VPOC, we're already starting to build some volume here. This would be the next place I would look for sellers to step in, is this 17 quarter. And like I said before, if this gets run over by buyers and starts moving higher with volume, I would just simply look for a long off of this area back up here, 2075. So I'm out of this trade, and if I were trading, I have two trade scenarios right now, and that's actually three. Potential short up here at 17 quarter. Potential long if price comes through and retests. I have my target. If I were to take the short, I have an initial target, and then let that see if it'll go lower. My other trade scenario is if this comes through this level at 10 quarter and leaves an intraday low volume area right here, I would look for a short on a retest, taking that back down to 875 and that 675 level. Does the auction down look finished? Let me just take a look here. Yeah, it looks finished. We got a low volume area here of 1125, and what you can see in this bar is this low volume area of the day, which lines up with yesterday. Price came back up, tested down, and look where it turned, right at that low volume area. So it's finished below that. I would not consider this auction open to the downside again until we got beyond, 11, 1075. Just simply because not only of this low volume area right here at 1125, but now what price is done here. And we may actually just start to see a little bit of, with that move, a little absorption, little coiling on the ES. I don't know that that's going to happen, but we may start to see this start to coil. We'll see. But I would not consider this auction reopen until price moved back down into these areas. And we are getting volume now here at 14. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm automatically going to take a short if price comes through this level. But if the selling cluster or buying, if we get a buying cluster, this is developing bar, get a buying cluster down here, it could just coil here for a little bit. Does that make sense though? I'm not considering this auction re-engaged to the downside until this is engaged again. Now, the fact that price could not get up through yesterday's VPOC makes the upside suspect, and I don't have a trade yet, but suggests that the downside is more at risk than the upside. But anything can happen. That's why I'm waiting. Double distribution day, possibly. We may still see a distribution below this level. Back down to the 675, 7 level. But again, I'm out of this trade for a couple of reasons, but I'm out of this trade. My stop was at, I think, 1525, so I would have gotten taken out anyway. But I want to be real clear. I have no trade. I have no trade until 17 quarter, or this re-engages the short side, the downside, and this starts developing another low volume area where I would look to take a potential short on a retest. And I would look to the print to help me manage that. A couple of questions here, legitimate questions I want to get through because other people probably have these. Can I go through the process for how you determine whether you think the auction is finished? Yeah. When I look at the top or bottom of the day, I'm going to try to make, look at that. So much better responsiveness. That was my my browser. One website was just crushing my system. Anyway, when you have a finish that looks like this, and then it pops above this low volume area, and then it begins to hold like this. Are those marks showing up on the screen? I'm trying to write on the screen. Can you see my lines? No? Okay. I don't know why that is. Well, I might as well see if I change color. Oh, you can't see that either. All right. Well, let me just circle it then. So this low volume area here at 1911.25, and I've talked about this before. 1, 2, 3, 4 ticks below this low volume area, and it popped right back up. If you ever have this scenario, it looks finished below this low volume area, you've got 5 or less bars, and they all look finished, and price pop back above that. If this holds on a retest, then I consider this done to the downside. If you don't have this low volume area, let's just say you had this nice taper all the way down, and we got responsive buying, which is fine. You expect inventory liquidation. People are short. They're going to start releasing some of their inventory to take profits, so expect price to come back. That's a natural swing of the auction, and that's fine. But if it comes back and now attempts lower, and it ends here, buyers start stepping in at 1075 and starts moving up again, then I'm giving a little bit more weight to the fact that this might be finished. And in my mind, what I'm saying is I don't consider this auction re-engaged to the downside until sellers can take price back down into this area. And then in the print, I want to see more activity. The next time it comes down, you can see these numbers here: 221, 273, 12, 126, and then 737, which is a little bit bigger down here. You can't see those numbers. Way too small.